Are you ready to answer a big question today? What is unity? What is unity? Raise your hand if you've got an idea of what it is. Raise your hand if you've ever not known what to say when someone's asked you, what is unity? Right? Like, do you know if unity is non-denominational? Do you know if unity is Christian? Do you know if unity is New Thought? Does it matter to you? What is unity? If you are in our Zoom room, put your answer in the chat. If you are on Facebook Live, put your answer in the chat. On YouTube, what is unity? This has been the topic of the conversation in our movement. Now, I haven't really shared that topic of conversation here too much because in the movement, you can only imagine with a bunch of leaders and ministers, it's an interesting conversation. It's quite an interesting conversation. Why? Because you can have yes and no to a lot of different answers in unity when it gets to the point of labels and titles. And I'm not interested in labels and titles, not one bit. I'm interested in consciousness. I'm interested in the way, the path, and I think that is something that we recognize when we see it. I think that is something we recognize when we know it's being lived. I think it's something that we recognize beyond all of those labels and identities, yeah? Like it's something you can feel in your bones when you greet it in the world. Each one of you in this room and each person practicing unity belongs in unity. And you know what? You are a very, very, very diverse people. Did you know that? Even as far as your spiritual practice, you are very, very diverse. Some of you are spiritual but not religious, yeah? Some of you were born into a religion and want nothing to do with it ever again and came into unity. Some of you were born or raised in a religion and love it and honor it, but this is more expansive for you, right? Some of you came through your life and did a lot of exploring and learning and unfolding and reading and tapping into different practices and different traditions, and you found that this one was a space that was safe for you to express and explore and unfold and develop. And you all belong right where you are. Just like I belong and my other Unity minister friends who teach but have different flavors and different flares, they belong, amen? I was recently in a minister's discussion group, and it was kind of fun because I always say this, and then I heard someone else say it about how grateful they are that they said, well, Erin will send people over here if she thinks they're going to like the flavor better. She might say, well, you know, if you want to practice in this way and have your practice look like this, you might want to go over to where Randy Fickey is at Unity Southeast. And if you want this tradition in this sense, the temple on the plaza, the Unity Temple on the plaza may be a really good space for you. And if you want to get into this style, and this is what feeds your heart, then you might like Unity of Independence. A lot of places don't have that gift, right? If you have this flavor in your life and this is how you express, you might like Unity of Overland Park. A lot of spaces, though, only have one Unity Center. So how can we all be so different? How can it be so different? There is this impulse and this question that's happened in the movement, and it's really not new, even though it's looking new. But it's like, well, we have to define ourselves and we got to get clear on who we are. We need a sticker. We need a sticker. What is it? Are we this? Are we that? Which one are you? Which one are you? Do you know that if we were to define how you define God, your source, if you define your spiritual practice, do you know we would just line the wall with individuals and there probably would be no corner that has more than one of you in it? Right? Can you feel that? But if we were to say some core tenets, some core principles on your practice, or what you recognize when you know that there is another fellow traveler on the walk of awakening, right? On the spiritual path of awakening. And we said right here in the center of the wheel, is unity. Unity consciousness. And if you're that, come to the middle. And you know what? That middle would be so full. It would be a beam of light. So I've never been interested in putting us out on the spokes of that wheel. And my heart's desire has always been to kind of be a spiritual translator, right? So if your language is the divine within, if your language is Great Spirit, if your language is Source, if your language is Father, if your language is God, if your language is the awakened one, if your language is love. You know, when I do weddings for people, if they say, well, we don't believe in God and that's why we came to find another minister because we couldn't find anyone, or I'm Jewish and she's Catholic and so we couldn't find anyone to do this wedding, well, would you do? And I say, well, tell me what you believe in. Do you believe in love? Well, then every time I would have put in God, I'll put in love. Got no problem with it at all. There is no problem with it at all. But in some spaces, in some places, that's sacrilege because you have to be this or that. Can you hear that conversation going on in our world today? Can you hear the consciousness of that conversation going on in our world today? You have to be this or you have to be that. It's going on with politics. It's going on with gender. It's going on with how many things fill in the blank. Are we going to let it divide us? Does it need to? Does it even matter? What we are is human and divine, and we're this gorgeous, like yin yang of it, right? Rolling through space, trying to find words to describe what it is to be both of these and what it is to have the practice. And that's beautiful, that's beautiful, that's beautiful. And the human condition wants to shrink it and wants to put it in a box and give it a label, wants to know where it fits on the timeline of world religions. Now, the Parliament of World Religions in 2010 introduced a new denomination. I guess it would be called a denomination. It was called New Thought. And unity fits in New Thought. Unity also fits in Christianity. Unity also fits in spiritual but non-religious, all those little danglers who aren't big enough to have a name. Unity fits in all of them. And yet still there's a desire to go because when you start to try to get a label, right, and you start to say, oh, well, we're this one. We have more in common with other new thoughts than we do with the overriding body of Christianity that teaches you're born in sin. Can you fill in the blanks? There is only one way, one path. Jesus is the only expression of divinity. It does not exist within you. Not the part that Jesus said about you too and more shall you do, but that first part, right? That heaven and hell maybe are places to go to, all that. So some people say we have more in common than we have in common in this. But then if you look at it, well, we celebrate Easter, and we celebrate Christmas, and we are culturally Christian, and we are spiritually unlimited, but we are based in this foundation of this practice, and it is critical. It's part of our consciousness, you know? We teach the Christ consciousness. What's another way to say that? We teach the awakened consciousness. That's also the consciousness that Buddha taught. The awakening, the anointed. And in fact, if you tap your foot into world religions and no religions at all, but you look through tribal cultures and stories that have been passed down through eras and ages, you find a thread, do you not? If you have studied, you find a thread. If you have studied, you know that Noah and the ark wasn't the first time we heard that story. Epic of Gilgamesh. But there is something so powerful in these stories, in these traditions, in this practice, that it's been passed down through ages and through eras. And it becomes really a mystical tradition. A mystical tradition of awakening to that yin yang of what it is to be human and divine. And the master teacher so beautifully taught that and shared that. And in fact, at the time when Christianity didn't exist, remember this, right? Because Jesus was Jewish. So in the midst of the Jewish Judaism and the time, the master teacher spoke against exclusion and elitism. When people would say there's a label, you are clean, you are unclean, you are included, you are not included, the master teacher taught against that. No, I'm going to go right to you and me right here. We get what's important, right? We get what's important. You and me right here. Everybody else doesn't want to touch you, but you and me, I get you. I'm right here. I see you. I know exactly who you are. Don't worry about those labels. Don't worry about what anyone else says or thinks. You know, I know, and you know when you recognize it. You can kind of figure out what unity teaches when you look at what it doesn't teach. It doesn't teach that we're here to get caught in suffering. It teaches that, yes, the world has suffering and the human condition can be difficult, but we don't have to be caged by it. We don't have to be limited by it. It teaches that no matter what we have going on, we can have the peace of our source, the peace of spirit, the peace of God. It teaches that we don't have to be a victim of our circumstances, but that we co-create through our perception, our experience, our meditation, our prayer life, our actions, our integrity, our alignment. It teaches that we don't need to judge each other because God is everywhere present. So I don't need to worry about making your decisions for you. I don't have to think that Aaron as a person or Aaron as a leader or Aaron as an anything, even if Aaron was a pope, that I don't know any more about you than you and your source know together in your moments of meditation and communion, that everything is written on your heart and everything will unfold with you with the evolution of your consciousness, the awakening of your mind, and the divine appointments in your life. So we may support each other, we may guide each other, we may wrestle things around, we may talk about it. We may even judge on a human level, but we acknowledge that we're here for our awakening. And we acknowledge that you're good in that. You're good. You've got this. It may look rocky sometimes, but it's kind of like raising a child, isn't it? Right? You do your part and you stand with them and you trust. So your turn. What else is unity not? That can be kind of easier sometimes than saying what it is. And if you're, again, on one of our platforms, go ahead and type it in. What isn't it? What is a way you can recognize, well, that's not unity? Anything? Trying to save somebody? It's not a cult. Isn't that funny? We get like the biggest, well, not the biggest. I mean, the Catholic Church definitely would like, because that actually has like a leader that's, but if you look up the definition of cult. But unity does get misunderstood as being a cult, which is just funny because it is like one of the spiritual practices that gives you the most space to think what you want, explore what you want, do what you want. I mean, even membership is like, if you want to stay a member over here and be a member here, go ahead. That's okay. Like the least technically close to that idea. It's like a full understanding that you are in the midst of awakened ones, spiritual teachers. It's like the full acknowledgement that we're here having a conversation, and part of that conversation comes out of one person's mouth, but it could be anyone up here. Because it's really just coming out of all of our consciousness, right? So what else? What else is unity not? Hate. That one is like not, yeah, it's not one of the symbols when you walk in the door. Hate, yeah.
It's not member and non-member, them and us. It's not that.
It's not member and non-member, them and us. Okay, what else? Yeah. It's not fear-based. Do we have fear? Raise your hand if you have fear. Yes. But we try not to act from that fear, right? And we acknowledge the human condition of fear, and we acknowledge how destructive it is to nourish that fear, to act from that fear. So we have a spiritual practice around that fear that helps us sit with it to recognize it's part of the human condition, but I don't want to live from there. What else? Not stagnant. Ah, yes. Even one of our New Thought sisters has a practice that, the founder said something, and then every time they get together, you read from what that founder said. And it's exactly, right, put in the way it is, right? Like you can't change it, even in New Thought, right? But unity is not stagnant. Charles Fillmore said, I reserve the right to change my mind. You can travel the country and go to unity centers, and you may feel like you want a label and you want to kind of tie it in a little bit better, define it a little more because it's so different. But if you really recognize it, the center of the wheel is the same. The consciousness. The what unity is not, you're not going to walk into any unity center and find hate. You're not going to walk into any unity center and find exclusion, or even find anyone that says unity is better than all the other paths. It's the best one, best for everyone. Anyone that doesn't have it is in trouble. You're not going to find that in any unity center. Anyone else want to share anything else unity is not? Not discriminatory. That's right. You can come in as you are, right? Come in as you are. This is not a Sunday morning experience. This is a lifestyle. It's a path. Every bit of your history is welcome here. Your dark side, your light side. We don't expect each other to be perfect. We don't have to hide ourselves. We can come vulnerable. Right? We can be authentic. What else is unity not? Not a predefined or prescribed path. It's like when you're trying to figure out, can I give you the booklet? I can't even quite give you the booklet. Kind of like the master teacher saying, I can't quite tell you where it is, but you're swimming in it. You're swimming in it, but I can't just hand it to you. It's there. You're swimming in it. So I have been down on myself for a few random little things lately, just sometimes you have that criticizer self that comes up, and some of it is having a lot to do lately, and I'm watching my brain style try to process that, and we won't go into that, but there was a little party going on inside of me. And I called one of my girlfriends, who I've known for a little while now, and she was with friends out of state. And I just said, I just wanted to check on you and see how you're doing and whatever. And she had the people she was staying with on the speakerphone, and she said, "You're on speakerphone." And I said, "Oh, hey there, just checking in on you. Are you having a good time in Nashville? Did you play your music yet? La 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 la." And she said, "This is my friend Erin. If she walked into a bar and there are 9 people in the bar, she will come out with 10 friends." And I got off that phone call, and I was like, I've never heard that about me before. And then it kind of trickled upon me for the rest of the day, And then I realized I felt a little better, a little more centered in myself, a little more seen, right? A little more acknowledged, oh, I am good. I am okay. I'm a little bit, not cool, but I'm a little bit cool, And that's kind of true. I feel like that. And I thought to myself, I think my dad would be saying, "Breathe that in, Erin. That's you." And that's unity. It's saying, I see you. In the sea of the human condition, in a field of normality, it is seeing the truth of who you are. And why do we walk into a room that has 9 people and come out with 10 friends? Because we know who they are, right? Really, we know who they are. I know you're not just someone dressed up in a button-up shirt and this and that and this and that. I know who you are. I have been around enough and I have sought enough that I know who is in there. So I'm not going to let it pass me by, and that is unity. Charles Fillmore, Unity's co-founder, studied world religions, just like we're talking about people and meeting people in a place, studied them and said, if there are truths that can be proven, truths that are universal, I will be able to prove them and I will see them where they are. So he studied all of them, and he found the teachings of the Most High in the different ones, and he brought them all together, and he said, this is unity. Do you believe that a Muslim, a Jew, a Hindu, a person of living on an island that never had a scripture, a Christian, whatever it is, you fill in the blank, all of those people, do you believe that there could be people on any path and any practice that could have the awakened consciousness? That, and in fact, right, on every path you have your vigilantes, and you have your letter of the law that actually turns into the opposite of godness, right? Because it's just it crucifies. It crucifies, it separates, it kills, literally kills in the name of the light. And then in those same traditions, in those same general practices, in those same prescriptions, you have the people that could be so different from you, so very different. It's I don't understand your mind. I don't even understand the words you're saying, but I can tell you're awake, right? I can tell that we're here, right? And then what happens? You don't care anymore. It's like good music. You don't care anymore. You don't care the words they're saying if you're moving. I was driving with my daughter this morning to service, and I was singing to her because she was all dressed up in her little shamrocky clothes. And I was singing this song. And of course, I made it up. Now I probably won't be able to even say it. And it's funny. Oh, it was something like, oh, smile now, me little shamrock. Oh, smile now, me little shamrock. Oh, smile now, me little shamrock, from cheek to cheek. Now dance now, me little shamrock. And I just kept going. Now laugh now, me little shamrock. Now laugh now, me little shamrock. Now laugh now, me little shamrock. And as I'm doing this whole song, we're coming to church. And she says, Ma, is that a Christmas song? And I said, let me check. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Yes, my little shamrock, it is a Christmas song. It's a Christmas song with different lyrics. So yes, your answer is it's the same thing. The melody, the harmony is the same. But the words that I put to express it are now all about Ireland and St. Patty's Day. But it's the same thing. Get it? It's the consciousness. And she recognized that. She recognized the words we use may be different, but the spirit is the same. Does that sound familiar? So what does unity look like? Unity looks like this. Unity looks like you. Unity is about mind over circumstance. It's about being centered in God and rooted in spiritual practice. Unity is about unity. That was one of my favorite parts of this ministers' discussion group. We were like, well, we've got to find labels. And then every time you start looking at the labels, you bring up the human condition. That excludes me. That excludes me. That doesn't work for me. Well, that excludes all of them. Well, that excludes them. Like, I'm not going to make you raise your hands. But some of you are going like, you see the things in the world, right? And you want to hug onto Christianity like, it's so beautiful. Let's stay right here, right? And then some of you see things going on in the world. And you're like, everybody's running out the door. Christianity's on fire. It's on flames. Let's not be associated with it. There's hate in this name. There's love in this name. Can we be spiritually mature to know that both are true? Both are true. And they're true not only of Christianity, they're true of New Thought. They're true of Hinduism, they're true of Buddhism, they're true of nothingism, they're true of atheism, they're true of agnosticism. There is just as much a holy, enlightened, awakened person that considers themselves to be atheist or agnostic as there is with someone that considers themselves religious, right? I mean, we know this, right? Because it's about the spirit of the law and how we live our lives. It's about this, what are we and what are we not? So in this minister's discussion, when we're trying to find these words, because we're trying to feel like, do we call it metaphysical Christianity? Do we call it New Thought? Do we call it New Thought Christian? Do we call it culturally Christian? Do we say Christian roots with New Thought shoots? Do we say practical Christianity? Do we say where ancient wisdom meets new thought? What do we say? And one of my favorite ministers that stirs the pot says, oh, if we need a name, how about unity? And I was like, hot dog, he's got it. He's got it. Unity. It wasn't just a moment when Fillmore's got that it was called unity. It was a big deal that they got it because it was called unity. So it is about oneness on all levels. It is about almost like anti-elitism. It is about hurt no living thing, even the planet. It is about honoring and knowing that we want what is best for all. It is about honoring and knowing that I'm not the authority is within and among us. It is about our practice, our prayer, our meditation, the law of mind action, forgiveness, learning, seeking the good, giving to where we're spiritually nourished. So when we leave this planet, we have created something intentional with our time, our talent, and our treasure. It is about the hidden curriculum in life. It is about being vulnerable, authentic, willing, humble, in service. It is about community. It is about abundance. It is about you. It is about God. One other minister said, We could define it, in the center spoke, it's about God within. And I said, that's good, we're getting there. That kind of says a little more about what it's not and what it is. The Dalai Lama said, it is in everybody's interest to seek that which leads to happiness and avoid that which leads to suffering. And because our interests are inextricably linked, we are compelled to accept ethics as the indispensable interface between my desire to be happy, and yours. So unity today, what is it? It's inclusiveness. It's inclusively Christian, but not exclusively Christian. It's spiritually unlimited. It's new thought. It's a practice of mindfulness. It's unity and diversity. It's positive. It's practical. It's progressive. It's contemplative. It's oneness. That's what unity is. Sig Paulson on How to Love Your Neighbor said this: we are discovering that no one has the corner on truth. The truth is a great circle that includes everyone, and each one has some of the love and the life of the infinite within him, regardless of his present state of unfoldment. We can no longer afford the luxury, and an expensive luxury it was, to believe and feel that we are all right and everyone else is wrong. On his deathbed, a wonderful friend said to me, Sig, all my life I've looked at life in terms of black and white and right and wrong. I can see now that I'm about ready to leave this world and that there is a lot of gray in between the black and white. I might add that in addition to that gray, there is a lot, this is what Sig says, there is a lot of technicolor. We are really coming in to a technicolor age in the beliefs and attitudes of man. Maybe we call it technicolor spirituality. And to close, in the words of Michael Singer, one of the inspired writers of today, he says this, and I'm just putting together blips from what he said. Our practice. What is in front of you is a very holy thing, all of it. When you commit to spiritual growth, you work on letting go of the stored blockages from the past and not storing any more from the present. The truth is, life is not hitting your weak spots. You are projecting your weak spots onto life. Use everything to let go of what stands between you and the God-realized state. Every single moment in front of you took billions of years, with everything happening exactly like it did, to manifest as it is. The highest life you can live is when every single moment that passes before you is better off because it did. Namaste.